We're going to kind of start over on this lesson 29, principal parts. And I think I'll do a little better job on it this time. The Greek verb normally has 6 principal parts, and each of them presents a tense stem, and these stems are used to construct all tenses and all the moods and voices. That would be all your moods: indicative, imperative, optative, and subjunctive moods. And then your voices would be active, passive, and middle. And those are all 3 voices. So we have some principal, there are 3 of the principal parts which have second and alternate weak forms. And some of the verbs have 6 forms. They have a first and second aorist. Some verbs do not have a full complement of 6. They were lost. Sometimes what's happened is one word will take the place of another word. Like in English here, we have am, was, and been. These are all 3 separate words that take the same place of the being verb. And so they take that place. Let's look at our chart here, and I think this will help us a bit. We have the 6 principal parts here: be present, future, aorist, perfect, middle, and aorist passive. And we have the tense is made from this basic stem. We have a basic stem like luo, and now my stem is lu. That's your stem. And that same stem will be used in this setup here for the present tense, all the present tense forms, and all the imperfect tense forms will have that same stem. With your future, your stem changes. It becomes a sigma. Now we're going to go over and look at a paradigm chart and see all this. So we add a sigma to it, and so we get the stem now changes from lu to loose, lambda, epsilon, sigma. And the future, inactive, and middle voices have this form. Now the passive voice and middle voices in the aorist and future are separate and different. So the passive voice doesn't have this form, okay, in the future. All right, your aorist, it has there's your stem right there, and then it adds an augment to it. Augment is the letter epsilon, and if the epsilon, if the first letter of the word is an alpha, for example, an epsilon and alpha together would make a long E sound or a long A sound and become an eta. So that would change by our rules. But most of the time it'll be an epsilon for your augment. So this right here has the stem changes. It has the same basic stem as the future right here, but it has an augment on it, right? So aorist active and middle voices here, and this is your aorist. That's your first aorist, okay? So your stem looks the same for the future and the aorist, but it does have an augment. The aorist will have that. Now then, your stem for your perfect here, we'll come down and look at this a minute. We'll find it down here, and it reduplicates. So we'll come back to it just in a few minutes, okay? Let's go over and look at a paradigm chart, and rather than go through all of these, go through a paradigm chart. We'll come over to a paradigm chart. Can you see the paradigm chart? Give me a yes or no.
I cannot.
I was afraid of that. All right. Go back. You can see Robert's grammar again.
Yeah, it hasn't left Robert's grammar.
Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do, I think I have to get out of it. I think I have to stop sharing and go back and pick it up. That's what I have to do. Didn't used to have to do this. I'm fine. I want to get to paradigm. This is what I want right here. Share that and go to information. Now, can you see the verb paradigms?
Yep, sure can.
Okay. All right. Now, what I've arranged these beside one another where they have the same stem. So the stems will be the same in both of these, what I've highlighted here. So we're going to look at this. So what we have is we have our basic stem, and looking at a lexicon, the entries in the lexicon will give you these forms, and you can see what the stem is. You can figure the stem out. So our stem is what goes before the omega. What goes before the omega is your stem in this case. Okay? And so we have a lu. And then we have over here, we have the lu again for this, the same stem. The imperfect and present have the same stem. So right here we have lu. And then all we do then is add to that stem o, ace, a, omen, ete, and usi. Those endings. So we have the basic stem lu, ace, lu a, lu omen, lu ete, lu usi. And that's how that works. The imperfect has the same stem as the present. And so, but it has an augment because it's past tense in the indicative mood. This is active indicative. So we put the augment on there. Again, the augment most of the time will be an epsilon, but if it begins with a vowel, the rules may change and it may turn into another letter, okay? Frequently it will turn into an eta, all right? And so that's pretty common. Most of the time it'll be an epsilon though, okay? So there's your basic stem. And now the ending on, and then here's your stem again. I'll go through it. Ace, A, just an epsilon, and may have a movable nu. Be omen, ete, and then on. And so that's your ending. So there's your stem all the way down with an augment. On, as, a, omen, ete, on. Okay. So that's your basic form for your present imperfect. Now, what they're saying is that this also, if we could go back to it, and I don't know how we can do this. A couple of years ago, I could just go back and forth from the files, and I'm gonna try this again. Can you see Robert's grammar? I don't think you can.
Still on the paradigms.
All right, that's all right. Go back to the paradigm. All right. What we've got here is, and if we go to the middle voice, the present middle, and so what we got the same stem. Sorry, same stem. There's your stem. And then we have an omai, a, eti, omatha, sa, ontai. So that's your middle voice, and it's also exactly the same form for the passive. Okay. So you have your stem all the way down, and again you have your stem, and there's your basic stem. It's exactly the same as the middle. It's the duplicate of the middle. All right. So now we have our imperfect. It's going to follow the same rule. There's your stem. And then we have an augment at the beginning of it. This will be middle, and the middle and passive have exactly the same form. in the present and imperfect tenses. And now in the aorist and the future tenses, they have a different form. Middle and aorist have a middle and passive have a different form. Okay. So right here, there's your stem, and then it's omain, and eluo, elu, and then it becomes eto, the ending, and then omatha, and then essay, then onto. And of course, your imperfect middle and passive have the same form. Okay. So we follow all the way down through here, then the present and the imperfect have exactly the same form. They have the same stem, and so we carry through this with the same stem. Are there questions about that? I'm going to go out of this again, and I hate to have to do this, but all right, back to Robert's grammar. Assuming that you can see it, let me know if you can. And so we now go to the future, and the future in active and middle voices. Okay, so look at the future. So your stem would be add a segment to the stem, and that has a new stem. So the stem becomes loose, lambda epsilon sigma. So that, and it has a future in the active and middle voices. I'm going to come back again. Any questions before I go out? Fine. All right. So let's take our future and we'll just highlight them. And the future active, and the future middle. All right. So right here, your stem now becomes loose. That becomes your stem all the way down. Always say omen et usi. Same ending as we have learned back in the present tense. We just add the sigma to it and have the same ending. Now that makes it future. Okay. Now then let's take the future middle, and now we still got the same stem, and becomes oma, a, eta, omatha, esse, onta. Right. Now your future passive is different form. So we won't, it loses the sigma and becomes a theta. It gets a theta to take it. We'll come back to that later, okay? All right, so that's your future active up here, and future middle down here. And they have the same stem. All right, I want you to see something else here. Back to this up here, the future. The endings O, ace, a, omen, et, usi are the same as the present ending. O, ace, a, omen, et, usi. All right, let's come down here to the future. And we have our stem. We have oma, a, eta, oma, a, eta, omatha, esse, onta, onta. So yeah, the endings are the same. Just adds a sigma to it. Any questions? There's a pattern to it. We come back to it. All right, now I want to go back to our paradigms. And again, I've got to go out. Get out again. Can you see Robert's grammar again?
Yes.
Okay. All right, we're going to look at the aorist now, and it will have a sigma. It'll have the same basic stem like the future up here, but it has an augment on it. Okay. So that'll be aorist active, and middle voices will have that same stem. The me aorist verbs taking them here, the second are me aorist. Okay, or the verbs taking them. So we'll come back over here, and Lou, we'll come back to it and use it as our pattern. And get it out again. And we come back to information. There we are. There's your aorist. And so we're going to look at the stem. And so I'll highlight the stem. There's your stem. And of course, we have an augment because it's aorist, indicative aorist. It won't have an augment in the other moods, but it will have an indicative because the augment tells you time. Okay. And the other moods don't have time built into them. Okay. So we won't have an augment in the other moods, only in the indicative mode right up here, indicative. Loose, us, a, amen, ate, son, on. So again, I'll highlight the stem. And the epsilon, of course, is your augment. There it is. Amen. And ate is an augment at the beginning. Any questions? And so we have the middle and your first aorist. This is first aorist. We still have the same stem, but now we don't. What we have here is a main ending, augment, a main ending. Your stem here, and that becomes O. And that can fool you if you're not careful. You think that's first person. That's first person of something. Ending. And there's your stem, auto ending. There's your stem with an augment, amen, amamatha. There's your stem, ase, with an augment. There's your stem, anto, with an augment. Any questions? See how the pattern works? Right. Now your first aorist passive is different. So it has a different ending. It doesn't have a sigma. It picks up a theta. So we'll come back to that later. Okay. All right. Your second aorist doesn't have a sigma in it. See, there's your stem for it. Come back to it in a minute. All right. And notice the second aorist, when we get back to it, there's no sigma. And the endings on a, omatha, ete, on are the same as your perfect endings. Okay. Any comments there? Okay. I'm going to go back in here. I'm going to just a minute, I'll be right back.
Is it true that
Now, your aorist, there's your stem, first aorist, and active and middle voices. I think we just went through that. Now, what we have here is our stem becomes different now for the perfect. Here's your perfect stem. And I get a little mixed up on this. Kappa, I think, is part of this. I look. Right. And so we come back over and look over here. Now we're going to have to come down to a different right here. And there is your. I'm a little bit not certain as whether the kappa is part of the stem. I think it is. Right. So I might be wrong on that. I need to go back and double check that. So I think the kappa is part of your stem. So you'll carry the kappa all the way through down through it. Okay. And so there's your new stem. It has that reduplication, whereas the perfect is redoing something. I think of it in that way. So I have an as, a, amen, ate, asi. So that'll be your stem plus those endings. Right. Now, no, I'm wrong. The kappa is not part of it. Right. Your basic stem. We go back and I'll see how I know that. I made a mistake there. Go back to Roberts. Roberts. All right. The perfect and perfect active. No, I was right. The kappa is part of it. Okay. Just about talked myself into being wrong. All right. The middle, so your perfect and perfect have the same form. Okay. All right. The perfect will have an augment. It's past perfect. Okay. The perfect middle, right here is your stem on it. Reduplicates. That's your perfect middle. And perfect and perfect middle and passive. So let's go over and look at them. To get the perfect, perfect, got to come down to this right here. Perfect active. And here's your stem. And there's your stem again. Right. This has an augment. The perfect and the perfect have the same stem. These have the same stem. Right. Any questions? Right. There's your perfect middle. Did I just do that? I can't remember. I think I just did that. All right. We have the future perfect also, so I'm going to go over to that. Perfect middle, perfect and pluperfect middle, and passive future perfect. All right. All right. So we're going to give a passive future perfect. There's only about half a dozen future perfect tenses, verbs in the New Testament, somewhere thereabouts, 5 or 6 or 7, something like that. And we don't have the paradigm chart in this book, in the Robert's book. So I got it out of other Greek grammar books and put it in my notes here for us. So we're going to go over and look at it now. So you won't find it in this book. All right. There's your future passive. And so here's your stem for this one. Here's your stem, lelu, all the way down, my, psi, tie, metha, stay, tie. All right. There's your stem. There. Now we come over here, we have the same stem for the pluperfect. And we have the main, so, to, metha, say, ta, to, right? And it has an augment on it. Because that pluperfect is past perfect tense. It's past tense. This is your middle passive form. So your perfect middle passive and pluperfect middle passive, they have the same stem all the way down. And we have our future perfect, and what it has puts a stigma on it. And a stigma to its stem. Oma, a, eta, omata, essa, onta. That's your future perfect. Again, as I told you, that's a future perfect passive. And the future perfect passive is real rare. It's found half a dozen times in the New Testament. Any questions or comments about that? All right. Let's go back. We're going to aorist passive. And we have our stem, and we add a theta to it. That's aorist passive. And we have an augment in the theta. So that's this ace, amen, hete, and son, ason. So there's your stem. And there's your ending, and there's your augment. Now, we have, for the future passive, we have the same stem. So notice, go back to my stem. There's your stem, I'm sorry. There's your stem. And we have the same stem over here in the future. It lost its augment because it's not past tense. See? Right? I want to move that over just a little. Right. So we have loose. There's your stem. And asomai, asay, aseta, asomta, somata, aseste, asomta. And that's your stem there. The theta. Loose. And that gets all your paradigm charts. Now, when you look in the lexicon, you can see they'll give this information in the lexicon itself, which I want us to look at sometime. I'll have to make some charts up for you. Okay. Go back to Roberts. Hope this jumping around is not confusing you. And we look to the aorist and the future passive. So what we've seen here is all these principal parts. And if you can get the principal parts down, you got it all laid out. These are how you conjugate your verbs, how the endings are there. He brings in some Latin. I don't know much Latin. He brings in a little French. I don't know much of that either. I know a few words in French and a few words in Latin, probably more Latin than I do French. And so all verb forms are built, okay? Now, regular vowel and diphthong stems, let's see, here is our stem. I can tell it because omega in the first person singular just ends in omega. And everything before the omega is your stem. Okay? Does that make sense? Present tense. All right. Now, what is your stem for the future? Well, this next entry is future. There's your stem for it. All right. So we come over here, and this is aorist. It has an augment and it has an off ending for the first person singular. Okay. All right. There's your perfect tense. So it has that's your stem for it, for the perfect. All right. Here's your stem right here. And here's here. That's passive. Okay. Any questions? So now these may be given if there still has all of these forms. You'll have every one of these forms in the lexicon. And so you can open your lexicon up and see. What I'd like for you to do, Benjamin, do you have a lexicon? Do you have a Thayer's lexicon?
I think we talked about that last time. I talked about maybe ordering one, but I didn't get one.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Well, I thought we might just open a lexicon up and look at how they have it laid out for us a little bit. I guess you do have one, Bobby, don't you? Have a strong Thayer's lexicon, probably.
Yeah, I have 3 or 4 of them. Not Thayer's, but others.
Okay. All right. Well, what I'll do is I will make up a file with 2 or 3 words on it, and I'll show you how they're put in the lexicon. Is that all right? I'll do that for next week. Okay. I have a file for us, and we'll look at it. I won't get into it right here now. We have short vowels, L, and so they shorten, and we can't put this all poi, a, l, poi, a, o. We have 2 dips, a diphthong and 2 vowels together. That's just too many vowels to pronounce it right. So they shorten it, and they make a contraction out of it. And so, again, this is your present tense. There's your future. There's your aorist. There's your perfect, and so forth. There's your passive, aorist, passive over here. Okay. And any comments there? Those 3 verbs. They got poieo, agapao, plero, and they're contracted. They're in the text of the Bible. They're contracted form. Okay. Any questions now? he goes through several stems, and I'm not going to go through all of these here. We can pick one or two of them up later. In this principal parts of your verbs here, ago is present tense, and so your stem will be og. So let's lay it out. Og. Now, whenever we take a gamma and put a sigma after it, it should be, well, all we should do here is we should put a sigma in here right there. And I'll try to put a sigma in. I'll put an S for a sigma. All right. We put a sigma in, we have a gamma and a sigma together, and that won't work. That just won't work. It's not allowed. So it becomes a C. So that's why the future then is irregular because of this rule. It's a rule of pronunciation. So it becomes irregular. So it doesn't have a gamma and with the sigma after it, just C. The gamma and the sigma make it a C. Right? So that's why that was irregular. That's your future. The sigma and the gamma just won't become a C. Over here, we have an augment, an og. There's your og. And what the problem with that is, pronunciation, you can't put an alpha, an eta, and an alpha together, see? So they make agagon. So that becomes irregular also, probably because of pronunciation rules. Not necessarily that way, but probably. Perfect, there's no form for this word in the New Testament. It may be in classical Greek, but it's not in the New Testament. That's what we're concerned with. We have a middle form, and again, it goes off like this. There's your stem, og, and so it becomes egg. And so the stem becomes what the perfect middle, and that's reduplication. Again, that's irregular. It won't follow the normal reduplication rules. Here it's passive, and again, it's different. And so these words, these are all of your words that are irregular in the New Testament. All of them that are irregular are in this file. Now, we have a file that I looked at, and so what we're going to look at is we're going to find ago in that file. I'm going to go out of this file, and we'll go out. And I'm going to look at my lexicon and grammar notes. And right here. Now, I want to go back up here. We'll go to og. Right there. And notice what I've done. I've added the root in here, og, and laid it out for you. It's irregular in the forms. Now, if we would look into Thayer, you'll have over here the various forms right here in the Thayer's lexicon. I'm going to open my Thayer right now and make sure that what I've got here is correct. And so this is on Thayer. Look at Thayer on page 9 and 10. Okay. So we'll go to page 9 and 10 on Thayer. And we have ago on page 9. It's a pretty lengthy entrance. It has the imperfect form, the future, second aorist, and those are the forms it has. And of course, it has an infinitive or two, okay? So it has imperfect, and it has future, and it has second aorist, but that's an infinitive. It has an infinitive as well, simple infinitives. So it has the listing of the forms of them And you can get this, you can get the stems from this technique that we've been through here. Okay. And what I probably need to do is take a word like this or two and pick a word or two and use them as illustrations of how we do this. How you can do it with your lexicon. All right. Any questions about that? Okay. All right. We're about to the end of our study. And let's do this. Now, what we have, I want to show a couple of things. A kuo, and there's your stem right there. And then we have a future, and a kusoma. And all they do is for the future, they just add an ending. And that will be your middle voice. And that's middle. And right here is future. That'd be your future. I don't know why he listed the middle first and the present future and the active future second. I don't know why he listed in that order, but he did. Now we have and the augment makes the alpha into an eta. That's why that becomes an eta instead of an alpha, because the augment makes that alpha into an eta. So that's some of your rules that we're going through, and that's how we get that. I'll come back and I want to do this. I want us to come down here and work on text A a little bit. And so we'll come back and look at this a little more, and I'd like for you to look at text A down here. All right. And you might look at these questions, these 5 questions as well, okay? But this text A is not too long. We'll work it in. All right. Any questions? He said to Jesus, verily, verily, I say unto you, amen, amen, lego humin. And that's an expression, verily, verily, I say unto you. All right, any questions? Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. I need to stop recording.